Second, not all governments are default-free. So let's do a few exercises in getting risk-free rates. Let's start easy. Let's start with trying to estimate a US dollar risk-free rate. Okay? Here's a simple way to do it, right? Look up a 10-year government bond rate. But remember, you have choices. The US Treasury issues 3-month T-bills, 6-month T-bills, 1-year, 2-year, 5-year, 10-year, all the way up to 30-year. How do you decide which one to use as your risk-free rate? The answer, I think, lies in what you're trying to do. If you're trying to do valuation, your cash flows, in a sense, extend forever. Even if you stop at the end of year 5 or year 10, that end number that you leave, that terminal value, often assumes your cash flows keep going after year 5 or 10. So you would like to have a long-term default-free rate. So you want to go with the longest term rate you can find. In this case, that sounds like the 30-year bond rate. I actually prefer to use the 10-year bond rate, and let me explain why. The risk-free rate is just the start of the process. I need to get default spreads. I need to get equity risk premiums. In other words, I need other inputs to get the rest of the model going. And those inputs are easier to get with a 10-year T-bond rate than with a 30-year bond rate. For instance, to get a default spread for a corporate bond, I need to find other corporate bonds of equivalent maturity. It's easy to find 10-year corporates. It's very difficult to find 30-year corporates. One final point. You're saying, what about the TIPS rate? When can I use that as my risk-free rate? The TIPS rate, if you're not familiar with it, is an inflation-protected treasury bond. It's a real interest rate. If your valuation were being done in real terms, remember we talked about estimating cash flows without inflation, real cash flows, that would be your risk-free rate. If you're doing a nominal US dollar valuation, the TIPS rate should not even be a choice. So if you're looking at US dollars, you could use the 10-year US T-bond rate as your risk-free rate. But one final point, we are implicitly assuming when we do this that the US